We also have another one along the same lines, 1484/2016 by Mircea Sipano from Romania on the ill treatment of stray animals in Romania. We have Maria Vasi, who is a lawyer. Is she here? Yes, good. Welcome in that case. You have 5 minutes to explain about these petitions. We will then be hearing from the Commission, and you'll have a final 2 minutes as well later on. So the floor is yours, and welcome.
Welcome. I'm going to speak to you, members of the European Parliament, telling you that we are really happy to be here, and we would like to welcome you and to thank you for having allowed us to come here. Allow me to tell you that as a representative of the Federation, as the competencies of the Union are guaranteed by Article 2 in the treaty, includes the social policies which lead to the protection of the status of a dignified European citizen for all the members of the European Union. So the policy applied to homeless dogs is a policy which is integrated in the policies of the European Union, because we are in 2020. We are free people, we are dignified people, we have beautiful lives, and we could not see the sufferance of the animals along us. How can we speak about our own welfare as citizens of the European Union as long as we see suffer dogs which are ill-treated in Romania? I do not want to offend your common sense, but I would like you to see how cruelty is applied to dogs in Romania. And we don't have individual solutions for the dogs in Romania. Why? Because the Union says, as I used to hear in the past, and I didn't really hope to hear it in the European Parliament, that it is not of the competence of the European Union to look at the suffering of these animals. No, it is the competence of the European Union, because signing the treaty to join the European Union tells us that we will enjoy physical and emotional certainty to be happy alongside our families. And we can't have that while looking around us and seeing such acts of cruelty perpetrated against the dogs. I'd like to see someone as representative of the European Parliament and tell us that today we need to see such acts of cruelty, and we have no right to legislate. You do have the right to legislate. Culling in Europe is an en masse process. It doesn't really matter if the dogs are healthy or ill. Under the protection of a fake legality, very many companies take a lot of money to kill these dogs. We live by the motto, apprehend and cull these animals. There are no other practices to protect these animals. Why? Because we don't have community law in this respect. And in our country, we don't have efficient measures to allow lawyers to denounce these criminals' injustice. And this is why I would like you to thank God for the fact that you are happy, but we should also take care of these sensitive features, We should, praise France and Portugal, who have introduced the animal as a third category of legal person. I would like to praise those countries that have forbidden en masse culling. Greece, Germany, Ireland, Czech, the Czech Republic, Spain, Portugal, and other countries. We are members of the European Union, and we want to live with the same emotional comfort that is enjoyed by the citizens of these countries. Romanians would like to be proud of being citizens of the European Union because of that. In Romania, 3 weeks ago, Cristina Topescu, a journalist, died. Why? Because, like very many of us, was involved in taking care of tens and tens of such animals so as to compensate for the lack of legislative measures and social measures to solve this problem. And this woman was really overwhelmed by the suffering of these dogs. You're here to make law. I'm sorry that I can't really present you the materials that I have brought together with me. I will present them to you. We have lots and lots of movies that you would like to see at, and thank you for the time that you have allotted to me. Think about the competencies that you might have. And we have in our written material the legal grounds for you to do that. For the Petty Commission should try and do something and oblige the member states to come up with legislation in this respect. We are not isolated from these beings who need protection. Yeah, because there should be agreement between the welfare of these beings and the welfare of people in the European Union.
Muchísimas gracias. Ahora tendría la palabra de la Hagen.
Thank you very much. I'm now hand over to DG Sante. Christine Verhagen, you have the floor.
Ja, vielen Dank. Vielen Dank.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for presenting that petition. I can only really just repeat what I just said before, although the Commission, of course, does know that the situation with regard to animal welfare of stray dogs in Romania can be problematic, certainly according to reports that we have received. According to those descriptions, there is a big problem. But the welfare of stray dogs is not covered by EU law, and the EU has no legal basis in order to be able to take corresponding measures. This is solely within the remit of each member state. Article 13, which I mentioned before, Article 13 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, it says that, well, it covers the legal basis and the provisions for animal welfare. The article says that in determining and applying the policies of the European Union in the sectors of agriculture, fisheries, transport, internal market research, technological developments, and aerospace, the European Union and the member states have to make sure that animals are considered sentient beings and take full account of that fact. They need to look at the legal and administrative regulations and the practices in the member states with that in mind, particularly with regard to religious rights, cultural traditions, and religious heritage. This is the legal basis for possible legislative action on the part of the European Union, and that does not cover action with regard to stray dogs. The Commission therefore takes action on the basis of and within the possibilities of agreements signed with the Member States, and these are subjects that do not fall under this the union law, and they fall within the remit of the member states alone. I just want to say something about the Council recommendations. The Council did not sign these recommendations of the Council of Europe. It's the member states that are signatories to that agreement. The Commission has no legal possibility to intervene. The Commission certainly does take action in this area, though. It supports, for example, the OIE, the Organization for International Control of Diseases, animal-based diseases, and it also looks at how to manage stray dogs and looks at international standards and tries to implement these, because they are very important for the local government when it comes to applying legal provisions, when it comes to the ownership of dogs, controlling stray dog populations, and how to alleviate problems that dogs cause. And that sometimes comes within the remit of the particular local government. Every member state, though, as member of the OIE, needs to look at how to apply the international guidelines, how best to apply those guidelines in their own country. That's up to them. The Commission supports the work of the OIE and the work of the member states, but once again, it does not have any legal powers to legislate. To sum up, therefore, the welfare of stray dogs does not fall within the competence of Article 13 of the treaty, and therefore is not part of EU law. The Commission has no legal powers to intervene in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Now has the floor Ms. Strugariu.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I would actually like to underline a few things, while being fully aware about all of the aspects put forward by the Commission in the previous petition, as well as in this one, as well as in the following one, as a matter of fact, because it is also a petition from Romania relating to the situation of the stray dogs. I think there are a few aspects that nevertheless deserve to be underlined here. The behavior towards stray dogs and the behavior towards animals and pet animals in general is a matter that directly relates to European citizenship and to European behavior. And the issue in Romania comprises two aspects. One of them is related to the authorities and the way that authorities understand to deal with this issue. And the other one is the responsibility of the citizens and the way they treat this matter, some of them. And we do have also situations in which animals are abandoned on the street if people move, or they are just taken care of for a while, and then they will end up in shelters and killed. So it is a very complex situation. Nevertheless, I fully support the idea of keeping this topic open, and even if we don't issue legislation today, I think we should still refer to the guidelines of the Council of Europe. And I fully support the proposal of Ms. Zdanoka to address this to the Council of Europe for the framework of decisions to keep the petition open, and maybe to ask for some further information from the Romanian authorities as well. Because I do not believe that treating this matter with cruelty or with radical measures or with indifference has to do with responsible and European behavior from the Romanian authorities, as well as it doesn't have to do with responsible European citizenship from those people who are responsible for such situations. Thank you very much.
Благодаря ви, госпожо председател. Немислимо е такова варварство 21 век в страна.
Thank you. Well, this kind of horror is absolutely unthinkable, especially because it's taking place in an EU member state. In Bulgaria, we're facing a similar situation, but killing animals carries a serious prison sentence. And the European Commission seems to be washing its hands of this, saying that Article 13 gives it no competence, though the Commission is competent in many other areas. For instance, registering pets. If there were other mechanisms of this nature, there would be far fewer stray dogs. There would be more checks. Why is there no legislative framework to protect animals throughout the European Union? There's no framework for trade in pets. And when there are no checks, pets may be left out on the street, and there's just no room left in the shelters. So we need to think carefully about this, and we need to take action to ensure that a legislative framework is set up to ensure that we have a humane attitude towards animals. If we fail to do so, then eventually perhaps this will also lead to the inhumane treatment of humans. I believe the petition ought to remain open.
Perfecto, muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. I shall now give the floor to Ms. Danuka. You have the floor.
I just want to reflect to what the Commission has commented on this second petition. Yes, you are saying that there no any legislative act exists making obligations on EU level on this issue, but we want from Commission not only constatations but just more proactive behavior. Therefore, we are here intermediator between the European citizens and the legislator and further activities in the field of European legislation. If the Council of Europe can adopt the treaty concerning pet animals, why not European Union cannot move in the same direction and to propose some new documents, some new legislative acts. And that is what I am proposing. It's a quite recent European Convention. There are 18 EU member states, among them Cyprus, Romania, Lithuania, we will look further. By the way, Bulgaria also, and my country, Latvia. So we have all possibilities to investigate how does this instrument work and what we can take from there to our own legislation in the level of the European Union. By the way, the European Union became a member of the European Convention of Human Rights. Why not look at other documents of the Council of Europe, in particular on this Convention for the Protection of Pet Animals?
Thank you. Mr. Brookman.
Ja, sehr geehrte Frau Vorsitzende.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to the petitioner as well, what I'd like to talk about is all petitions under item 25 to 30 on our agenda today. Finally, I've got the opportunity to talk about companion animals, bad breeding of animals and poor treatment of hunting dogs. All of these things need to be looked at. We have petitions here of 80,000 signatures. I'd like to thank the petitioner for this effort that has been put in to try and help animals. Hunting dogs are only used during the hunting season, and then afterwards they're abandoned or killed. The way in which they are treated during the season is horrendous. The stray dogs being culled all the time in Romania and other countries. There's no action from the EU. We can't accept that anymore. In Bulgaria, the treatment of stray animals is also unacceptable. After castration, the animals are simply put out onto the streets again and left to their own fate. They're put into shelters. They're much too small, and they see out the rest of their days in those so-called shelters. There's also a very bad breeding of animals. It's not taken into account. Animals are unhealthy. They are bred from the way they are treated during the whole time of that. The stray dogs have to fight for their lives, fight for survival every single day. They're run over. They have to fend for themselves. They get diseases. And often in some countries it's a sport to actually hunt them down and kill them. This is totally unacceptable. Countries that have a high population of stray animals need to be supported by the EU. Vaccination projects, sterilization projects, all of these things need to be supported by the EU. In the Environmental Committee, there was an important vote taken with regard to environmental measures and pet animals. It also concerned stray animals. Anja Hazekamp, my colleague, made sure that there was better identification and registration of companion animals, and we said that this was a very useful tool in helping to stem the abuse of animals. I think petitions that are mentioned here need to be open. There is no question about it in my view. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Como no hay ninguna...
Thank you very much. Well, I can see no further requests to the floor, and so I would give the petitioner 2 minutes to finish, to conclude.
Thank you very much to all of you who understand my issue. Let me remind you the following. Resolution 216 per 2012, which issues a recommendation to the European Parliament to encourage the Commission to take all necessary measures for the welfare of the animals. What has been done since 2012 up until the present? There is nothing besides this recommendation. But thank you, because, as you have said, nobody forbids you from taking measures. So please, with all due respect, do not forget us. Our suffering and the suffering of those who are looking at these cruel acts perpetrated against animals, the suffering of those pets continues, and we cannot defy it because it is not seen from Brussels. So I would like to ask you, on behalf of these animals, if you don't have a law, legislate, because you have this competence. Please look at all our written materials. I could not speak about them. In those written materials, there are some solutions which are suggested there, a kind of animal police as an official agency of Romania. So look at our materials, look at our documents, ask for questions, and do not forget that for Romanians to be European citizens, they need these problems to be solved. We can't wait for big measures from the Romanian members of parliament if they don't do anything about that, because they need to look at what is happening. Please examine objectively the situation in Romania, and as you helped us to become members of the European Union, please help us to change things in this situation as well, because there is a lot of suffering, more suffering than ever. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Well, having heard from the petitioner, the Commission, and the members of this committee, the Chair would suggest keeping this petition open. We would suggest sending a letter to the Council because there is a convention that has been signed by a number of member states. So we would suggest a letter to the Council of Europe, including petitions on animal welfare, on poor treatment of animals, animal suffering, and as there is nothing we can use in terms of EU legislation, a letter to the Council of Europe, signed by many member states, might be useful for them to work more closely on animal welfare. So for now, the petition shall remain open, and we shall wait to hear from the Council before we move forward with more decisions on this petition. Thank you to the